not loud enough, just tell me and I'll get louder. I kind of have the easy part of this presentation. I'll just give you an update of, what are we doing? What's the future look like? What are some of the projects we're working on? And how many people we have, that kind of stuff. So this is more or less our report card at the end of 2024. How did we do in 2024? We ended, and it feels like it's a long ways away at this point, we ended with 402 employees. We currently have, I believe, 409 right now. That's probably about as high as we'll get, I hope. We got about 35 college kids working for the summer, so we're about 450 people coming to work right now. We milled or processed ore at 44,000 tons a day. Went through our milling process, and we mined a total of 97,900 tons a day. So the difference of those numbers is there's ore and there's non-ore, what we also call waste. So we got to move some overburden or some waste, and Mark will talk a little bit more about that. We're moving about 100,000 tons a day. We produce 53 million pounds of copper. That is the lowest number that I remember in my 20 years. And probably Steve Walsh, you didn't see numbers that low, I don't think, for a while.
They would have fired me.
What's that?
They would have fired me.
They would have fired you. Yeah. A lot of that is based on where we were mining. We were just in the continental pit, mining the hard gray rock. In the meantime, if you guys look out the window when you leave and you look up towards the pit, you'll see kind of that red mountain. We're laying that back right now, and we're going to be accessing some very high-grade copper ore for our mine. It's about twice as rich as what's in the pit. And so we're going to see that number come up, probably to about maybe 58 to 60 million by the end of the year, because we should get into that in about a month. And then we should be in that for a few years, and we may see this number start to get up to about 70 million. They wouldn't fire you for 70, I don't think, Steve. 70 is a good number. 70 is a big number for us. But we also make molybdenum, and if you don't know what that is, it's primarily used to harden steel. It's in a lot of different products. It's in your Ensure breakfast drink. It's in your mascara, but mostly to harden steel. That's a pretty good number for us. There's a lot more moly in the bottom of the pit. There's none up top. So next year we'll see this number go down, and we'll see this number go up. And we always get a little bit of silver comes along. It's just there, so we get paid for it. Those are the three metals that we get paid for. This is a bit of a busy slide, but this is the hardware that runs the mine. We have 18 of those large haul trucks, lots of bulldozers out there. We've got 3 large water trucks to try to keep the dust down. We've got a couple of really big loaders, and we've got 3 big shovels. They're the ones digging the rock, and we got a couple of drills that drill the blast holes. Yeah, there's a fairly good-sized mobile fleet out there. This is just a picture of the inside the mill. We're doing some pretty big project work in there right now. We're basically doing a lot of structural steel. This building is 60 years old, so it's got some age on it. And it's a wet process, so you get rust. And we're in a 3-year project to basically replace a lot of beams. A lot of steel beams are getting replaced to make sure the place stands up. And then we have a flotation process that we're moving away from the old system, which basically has 480 motors, and when we're done with it, we'll have 36 motors. Now they're going to be bigger motors, but we'll use a lot less electricity as well. So that project is going on right now, just started a few months ago, and that's going to take about 3 years as well to invest into this process. We hope and need, as Mark will talk about with the permit, that this is going to keep going for another 30 plus years. So what do we have in front of us? Now, obviously, the permit we're going to talk about today, we need a permit to continue mining because all mines will produce tailings at the end of their process. We've removed the metals, and now we have a whole bunch of dirt left over every day, and we put it into the Yankee Doodle tailings impoundment. So I get this number from the engineers every year. I come back in January, and I say, give me the numbers, fellas. And we have 576 million tons of ore in front of us. I like to point this number out. We had about 2.4 billion pounds of copper out into the future, 248 million pounds of molybdenum, and 23 million ounces of silver, and about 31 potential years of mine life in front of us. So this is a busy slide too, and Steve used to kind of keep track of this stuff for me. Now I got to do it myself. This is what has happened at the mine since it started as Montana Resources in 1986. We've mined 500 million tons of ore and almost 500 million tons of waste for a little over 1 billion tons. We celebrated that billion. Engineers like numbers, so we all had to get excited about a billion. This is how much we milled, and this is how much we produced from 1986 to 2024. We've produced about 2.5 billion pounds of copper, and we got about 2.5 billion pounds of copper in front of us, okay? And we've got a fair bit of moly we've mined, 323 million pounds of moly and 24 million ounces of silver. So that's what we've done. We show this slide to our employees every month. We meet with all the employees every month. We want to talk about safety. We want to talk about what did we spend our money on and where did we spend our money. We like the employees to know exactly how this business is run. We're very transparent. We track how much money we spend in Butte-Silver Bow. If we can buy it here, we buy it here. You know, nuts, bolts, pickups, parts, pieces, what you can get in Butte. We pay our taxes every year. We paid $9.5 million in our property tax and gross proceed tax. We do try to buy in Montana. We buy a fair bit out of Missoula. They have a cat dealership, so they get some money from us. Anything that's yellow is expensive, by the way. And not all of our employees live in Butte. About 92% of them live in Butte. The rest are in Anaconda, Whitehall, Deer Lodge, Peaburg, and that's about it. That's our workforce. So between our Montana purchases and our payroll last year is close to 71 million. Then we pay the metal mines tax to Helena every year, 7 million. The majority of that does come back to Butte School District number 1. So it goes back to our school system. And then we do have to buy, you know, out of state, out of Montana, close to $89 million worth of purchases out of Montana. So I think most of you probably know we're affiliated with the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, and I just like to kind of put some highlights up there. We got the Folk Festival that's coming up in July. They've been a big supporter. They've donated $200,000 so we can continue to have that festival every year, which, you know, I know the Main Street group, the Uptown group is much appreciative of that. We got Stodden Park, a nice facelift, looking good down there. Back in 17, we started a scholarship. It was called the MR Opportunity Scholarship. We renamed it to the Roland Erickson Scholarship, the last president who retired. And it's full ride scholarship for 3 kids out of the Butte School District. And so every year we got 3 more kids going up to get a full ride scholarship. Just general, you know, the foundation likes food banks and Salvation Armies and Big Brothers and Sisters and, you know, the rescue mission. They're just they're on the group to receive some money every year, just some dollars up there. And we just started this scholarship program with Highlands. Highlands just doesn't get, you know, quite the attention that Montana Tech does. So we said, well, let's start a scholarship for Butte kids again and give them full ride scholarships to Highlands if they had any interest in welding or automotive. So we just got 3 kids in last year, and we're waiting to see the next 3 that are named, and hopefully these will just go on in perpetuity. And I think that's it for me. So that's just the opener. It's going to be Mark. Any questions for me about the future, things going? Happy to ask. Yes, ma'am.
You say you get paid for silver. What happens to your gold?
We get so little gold that we don't get any credit. Now, the Berkeley had a fair bit of gold, but there was a time in Canada they'd give us a little bit of a gold credit, but it's so little that the Curtin smelters are like, I think it's their tip, I guess. I don't know.
So where do you send to smelt it?
The majority of it is going to a smelter in Quebec. So it rails up into Canada and to Quebec. It's gone, you know, I could have Steve come up here and talk. It's gone to China, Japan, Brazil, Mexico, Canada. It's gone everywhere. We basically sell our product to copper traders. They go out to smelters, and then they work a contract deal, and they just tell us where we're going. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Are there any rare earth minerals on the hill?
There is some rare earth minerals, and this is what I know about rare earths. They're not that rare, and they're not worth much, but I'm gonna let Mark take that one. He's more of the rare earth guy. So, somebody else? Yes, sir.
You said that the new pushback up there is going to be higher grade than
Yeah.
before. What kind of grade are you looking at now?
So, down in the pit, we've been mining some horribly low grades. 0.2% is a good day right now in the pit. We should be getting up to plus 0.5 with that. So we'll more than double. Yep. Yes?
I see you keep pushing towards the interstate.
We're as far as we're going. What you see now,
Is that far you're going?
we're not going any closer to the interstate. That's it. You're seeing the end of the line there. Ma'am?
Are you guys starting to redo all the old tailings? Are you starting to go through that again?
No, we're still continuing to push tailings into the Yankee Doodle tailings impoundment, but that's its home.
So how far is that gonna go? I mean, because it's gone within the last 10 years immensely.
It has. It is historically, and I should let Mark go there. That's what he's going to talk about is the tailings impoundment. But yes, it does rise. Yes. Yep. Yes, sir.
You say you got about 30 more years or so. What happens then?
So then we go into closure and reclamation. We start bringing in topsoil and seeding and grassing, and you know, all the dirt dumps you see start getting pushed down, sloped, and we go into reclamation closure.
Are you under any obligation to make it a certain standard?
Yes. I'm going to let Mark, the environmental guy, answer that.
I look out my front window and I see that damn scar of that beautiful mountain,
Yeah.
and I think, well, I won't be here, but
Me neither.
you know,
Yeah, there are rules and regulations.
I know
for
there
sure.
are, but you
Yep.
have to put up a bond and everything.
We do, and we get a bond review every year, and it always goes up.
Well, it has to.
It does. I mean, everything goes up, so.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm going to turn over to Mark.
One
So
question.
you got rare earths? Yes, sir.
The tailings.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people think that that's a big lake back there. Isn't it about a 50-50 or sludge or whatever you want to call it? It's not a very big lake behind the dam up there, is it?
No. Good again. He can tell you how many acre feet it has been and what it is today. Take it away, Mark.
Wow. So my name's Mark Thompson. I'm the Vice President of Environmental Affairs for Montana Resources. Lots of good questions. Well, one thing I do want to point out, the guy that Mike was picking on back there, Steve Walsh, is a retired Senior Vice President of Operations at Montana Resources. He was my boss back in the 90s, and then I left and went to Alaska and went some other places, and he turned around and hired me again in 2015. So one of us has a problem. I'm not sure which one. But no, Steve was always great to work for. He's probably the largest repository of knowledge for Montana Resources that's available out there. He should be giving this presentation, not Mike and I. So, but anyways, I'm glad to see him here.
Yeah, we'll get him too.
Okay, so let's start with the rare earths. Okay, so you know we're mining the Continental Pit, which is east of the Berkeley Pit, right? Those two ore bodies are distinctly different. The Berkeley Pit was a main stage vein ore deposit. So the ore was in the veins, some of them very thick. But you get too far outside the vein, there was no mineralization. Okay? The Continental Pit is a massive porphyry deposit. And in that rock, and this is the extent of my geology, so no one ask any geology questions after this, okay? But it has a mineralization throughout all the rock in the area. And the question is, does it have enough mineralization to be called ore and go to the mill, or not enough to be called non-ore rock or waste rock, which actually goes to the tailings dam to build the tailings dam? So they're completely different. So on the continental side, as Mike said, we're very low grade and we're very clean. We don't have a lot of the other mineralization that was associated with the Berkeley pit. And we don't have, I mean, as Mike said, rare earth elements are everywhere. They're not rare. They're rare in significant concentrations, but they are everywhere. But we don't have high grade, there's no grade to the rare earths on the continental side. On the Berkeley side, what we see is the water in the Berkeley pit has a significant amount of dissolved rare earth elements. And we've been working with West Virginia University and the Department of Defense to try to see if we can recover those rare earth elements and the zinc out of the Berkeley pit water. So on the Berkeley side, yes, we have some rare earths in significant quantities. On the continental side where we're mining right now, we don't have much. So I think on the tailings impoundment questions, let me go through this because this whole permit application I'm going to speak about is about the tailings impoundment. So as Mike said, we've got a little over 30 years of ore reserves out in front of us, but we only have about 10 years of tailings storage in front of us. So we need to find another 20 years of tailings storage. Another thing that Mike said is we've got about 580 million tons of ore. Most of that, probably 500 million tons, and I can't do the math in my head, but about 500 million tons is going to get turned into tailings. Only 80 million tons may make it into concentrate and shipped to a smelter. So the vast majority of the ore that we mine has to be stored on site because it is the rock with the minerals removed. And it's ground up, it's a sand to flour consistency. We got to get it that fine so that we can extract the minerals out of that rock. So this permit application, since we've been identifying new reserves, this will bring our known ore reserves in line with our known tailings, or the need for tailings storage. So those two will match with this permit. The other thing we're going to do, and I'm going to show you a sequence of how we're going to build the impoundment. We also have looked at how can we use the waste rock that we're going to produce out of the continental pit to benefit and enhance the tailings impoundment. So all the waste rock we're taking out of the pit is going to be placed either to lift the tailings impoundment, make it higher, or downstream so that it makes it thicker. Thicker dams or safer dams, okay? So it's just, what's the best use of that material that we're gonna, the waste rock, the non-ore rock, what's the best use for that? And we decided to put it on the downstream side of the embankment. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is what we're currently permitted for. And what regulates the size of the impoundment is the crest elevation of the embankment. So these are the embankments here, all the way around like this. So that's what we're regulated by. So our current permit says we can build embankment to the 6450 elevation. And that's an old Anaconda Mining Company datum. So it's not quite USGS. There's a little bit of difference, about 50 feet in elevation difference. And that gives us tailings storage to about 2032. So not quite 10 years. And what we're going to do with our waste rock, as I said, we're going to put it downstream on the embankment, and we're going to put it in this area, and then we're going to start building from the bottom in this area. For those of you familiar with our operation know that right down here is our truck maintenance shops. So we've got infrastructure down in that area. We're gonna, as I'm gonna show you, we're gonna have to relocate it eventually, but not right off the bat. So if we get the permit, first thing we're going to do is we're going to raise the crest elevation to 6,500. That's shown here in the pink. And that'll give us tailing storage to about 2045. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start building access and infrastructure to get the tailings up there. We need pipelines and pipeline ramps. We need access for the trucks to get up there, that sort of thing. And there's a 100,000 volt power line that serves Boulder and Helena that runs right through here. So we've got to get Northwestern Energy to relocate that power line for us, which we've got a new easement with them and they're working on that. So we're looking at this happening starting about 2032. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start building downstream or away from the tailings. We're going to start placing material in there, getting ready for the next lift. And this is where we're going to have to relocate those truck shops. That's about 2039. And you see we're filling in that area right there. But one of the things we got to do is this type of embankment relies on being free drained. So water does not build up in the embankment. It all drains out the bottom. And it all drains out into this area. So under this area in here, we're going to have to build rock drains so that water gets out. If that water can't get out, we've got some bad things happening there, and we're going to have to really figure that out. So we're going to put in these massive rock drains so that the water can drain out. And that water is collected and treated in the Horseshoe Bend Water Treatment Plant. So after we get that kind of the base built, we're going to come in, we're going to put on the 6560 lift. That's what that looks like. That's that pink area. And that gives us storage into the 2050s. So, and that'll get started about 2041. So for the remainder of mine life, we continue to strategically place our waste rock that enhances the embankment. You can see a lot more material down in here, over here, and then a little bit in that area. So that's about just under 500 million tons of rock placed into this facility. So the nice thing about this design that we've come up with here is as we mine, the facility gets stronger. So the longer we mine, the stronger the facility. A little bit on visuals. So if you're at the Granite Mountain Memorial and you look at the tailings impoundment or the embankment right now, that's what you see. See, there's the Granite Mountain right there. So when we get to the 6560, that's what it's going to look like. Basically, 110 feet more of the same visual. And then after reclamation, that's what it'll look like. So the slopes will get flattened out a little bit so that we can work on them, put on topsoil, revegetate, and the end land used for the tailings storage facility is wildlife habitat. So one of the things when you do reclamation under state law, you have to have a beneficial land use when you're done. One of those beneficial land use is wildlife habitat. So that's what this will be. Interesting thing, I don't know, those of us in the mining industry have known there's been some fairly dramatic tailing storage facility failures. Started in about 2014 with Mount Poly mine in British Columbia. Then there was 2 tailing storage facilities in Brazil that failed. One of them had a very high fatality rate, like over 200 people. And then just recently there was a tailing storage facility in Africa that failed. So after that first failure at Mount Poly, the Montana Mining Association, in conjunction with the legislature, said, hey, we could never let that happen in Montana. What do we need to do to never have anything like that happen in Montana? And so the legislature in 2015 passed well, with what are still the most robust regulations on tailing storage facilities in the world. A lot of what was done in 2015 in these regulations was copied into international standards. So if you're a mine nowadays and you want a loan to build a new mine, you have to meet certain standards, or most lending institutions won't finance your project. So you have to meet these international standards, which look a lot like what we did in Montana 5 years before that. So they're very robust, and the centerpiece is you have to have an engineer of record who doesn't work for the company, doesn't work for any affiliate of the company. He has to do all the designs. He's got to be a professional engineer licensed in Montana, and everything you do has to be stamped with his PE stamp. His work is overseen by a panel of 3 internationally recognized tailing storage facility experts. And they can tell them, yes, your design, we believe your designs will meet the Montana criteria, which are things like you have to be able to withstand the maximum credible earthquake that facility can experience and not lose containment of tailings or water. You have to be able to withstand the probable maximum flood event without loss of containment. So you look at the probable maximum flood event, what our design is based on is essentially 1 year of precipitation occurring in 24 hours, so about 12, 13 inches of rain, on top of a 1 in 100 year snowpack, with both of the molten reservoirs, which are upstream of the tailings impoundment, both of them failing. We've got to be able to contain that. So the independent review panel, these 3 experts, they review what the engineer of record says, okay, we can store that flood. They look at it and say, yes, we agree. And all 3 of those members have to agree. If any one of them says, oh, I have a little bit of a doubt, you got to go back and redesign. So it's not 2 out of 3 have to agree, it's all 3 have to agree. And we're very fortunate here in Montana, or we're very fortunate here at Montana Resources to have the independent review panel members that we have. One of them, Dr. Peter Robertson, he was the lead in charge of the investigation of that Brazilian dam failure. He was hired by the Brazilian government to tell them what the heck happened. He led a team of experts. So that's the type of guy you call when you want to know. Dr. Dirk Van Zyl, he was hired by the British Columbia government to investigate Mount Paul. He was one of the 3 experts that investigated. So we're very fortunate of the caliber of people we have ensuring the safety and stability of our facility. So we're very lucky. So here's the timeline. We've been working on this design for over 10 years. We've been collecting data, running models, doing analysis, and to get to that level where the IRP agrees, we had to have an enormous amount of data to support that. So we've been working on this thing for 10 years. We finally got it done. We submitted that design document to the independent review panel. We had been working with them very closely the whole time, so there was no surprises in there. They looked at it, they agreed with it. They've signed off on it. All 3 of them have agreed that this design can do the things that it needs to do based on Montana regulations. We have their report. We submitted a permit application to DEQ. They're reviewing that right now. They'll probably come back to us with some questions to clarify certain issues for them. We'll address their questions, send it back to them, and that can happen a couple of times based on what the questions might be and how we respond. So it kind of goes back and forth there for a little bit. Once they are happy with that permit application, then we go into kind of the public-facing side of the permitting process, and that's where DEQ engages the public. They'll start with a scoping comment period where you can submit comments to DEQ. We'll have a public meeting here in Butte where you can go and submit and verbally provide comments. Then they'll go off, and based on that scoping, they'll write an environmental impact statement, They'll come back with a draft environmental impact statement. There'll be another public comment period with another public meeting here in Butte. You know, and I've kind of got those, you know, I'm estimating that the scoping comments will be late this year, and then third quarter of 2026 will be the draft EIS. They take those comments, DEQ takes those comments, addresses those comments, modifies the EIS if necessary, comes out with the final EIS, a record of decision, and the final permit. And they'll also have to do a bond adjustment based on what we've asked for. And once we post that bond adjustment, the permit comes into effect. And we're looking at, you know, maybe middle of 2027 is what we're talking about. Which it suits our needs. We need to start building that 6,500 lift in that late 2029 type time frame. So we've got a couple of years in there, should we need to do something to address some DEQ concerns. So, which is very unusual in mining. Usually we're like, if we don't have this permit tomorrow, you know, we're in trouble. So to have a couple of years is really nice. So we got started on this and got moving. Things are rolling pretty good. One of the things I like to point out about the Yankee Doodle tailings impoundment, and this is coming from the IRP members, and they go around the world looking at tailings storage facilities. They're on several similar type panels. One of the things they really like about our facility is how well it's instrumented and monitored. As I said, you know, water level is a big deal. Rising water level is bad, falling water level, good. We've got over 133 different locations where we monitor water levels in that embankment. And a lot of those locations have, you know, up to 7 or 8 different instruments in that location right there. So we can monitor water levels at different elevations. All of it is in real time. So I can pull up what's going on at any one of these locations right now on my cell phone. And if anything gets out of normal ranges, you know, water level comes up higher than we've seen it in the past, might not be a real problem, but it's not what we're used to, we get automated alerts. And then we also have yellow levels. If the water level gets up here, you know, so this is starting to get a level of concern, and of course then we have red. If it gets up higher than that, we get a red. And that all comes through on probably almost 20 people's cell phones and emails. So the engineer of record in Vancouver, British Columbia, him and his team, they're notified, and probably 10 people at Montana Resources are notified automatically. So in conjunction with that, we're looking for movement. Is anything moving? Okay, so we got 47 locations where we're looking for movement. A lot of these are all the way down in the ground, all the way through the dam, all the way through the foundation material and into bedrock below. We're looking for movement on that foundation material at the bedrock interface. We're looking for movement at that foundation material and rockfill interface, and then anywhere in the rockfill. Those are all automated as well, so we can get alerts on those. And then looking for movement outside of those 47 things, twice a month we get a satellite pass over us that can detect movement up to about 5 millimeters. So it looks at, last time I was here, this is what I saw, now I'm here again, okay, what's different? So that's about every 2 weeks we get that. And then on top of that, then we have 3 locations that are fixed in bedrock where we look for earthquakes. So if we get an earthquake of a certain size, we're notified, hey, go inspect the dam. If it's bigger than that, you know, it's like inspect the dam immediately. And then if it's really big, evacuate the area. When I say evacuate the area, I'm talking mostly about that truck maintenance facility, okay? If the other thing we've done is we've made some essentially a giant berm we've created. So if anything were to ever happen to this facility and it did fail, everything goes into the Continental and Berkeley pit. So really, when we talk about evacuation, we're talking about get people off the dam, get people out of that truck shop. So, and that's an exercise we actually practice. So, not that we believe there's any significant potential of failure, but if you own a big dam, this is what you do. So, it's just a responsible thing to do.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done. Yeah, very well done.
Yes, sir. I was wondering about the viability of the water treatment plant in case there is an earthquake. It's right on a little spit in between the two pits, and if it was damaged, how would you treat that water before the Berkeley got up into the groundwater?
That's a really good question, but you're really looking at a force majeure situation. An earthquake of that magnitude is, that could actually damage the water treatment plant is going to be a very significant event.
Right.
So it's not going to be, you know, something we've experienced here ever before. So there's really not I'm going to be flat honest with you. There's really not a good plan if that were to happen, because we really don't have a good plan in this entire community for a massive earthquake like that. So
I had heard in the past that one of the options years ago was to build a second water treatment plant. I don't know if that was, I know it's expensive, but
yeah, that was something that ARCO was talking about.